Welcome to Islam Channel News. I'm your host, Mas Patel, bringing you, well, the latest hour for me at least, but it will continue up till 7 o'clock and then from 8 till 9, so stay tuned. I've now got somebody who's actually, somebody who I believe is a guest who's pretty special. I'm talking about Haytham Alhamwi. He's a former Syrian political prisoner who spent 7 months in solitary confinement while watching the unfolding Syrian revolution on television. He saw his prison cell that he was confined to, and that was 2 decades ago. Haytham, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Haytham, you know, I was watching yesterday's Channel 4 news report, and you know, I've seen some pretty, you know, bad things by journalists. I thought it was an incredible piece of journalism by them. And they went to this cemetery in North Damascus and they showed, you know, reports of maybe 150,000, 200,000 plus people who may have been buried there. I also saw reports, obviously, of the Saydnaya Prison and the prisoners being released, and then obviously the torture methods that took place. You were in Syednaya. You could have ended up in that mass grave as well. You didn't, thank God. You were there to tell the tale. You came to this country. You were given asylum, and we're all the better for it. For the benefit of our viewers, what was it like being a prisoner of that incredibly tyrannical, brutal regime?
Yeah, actually, when I was in prison, the situation was far more better than the situation after 2011. Assad was safe, and he was like, some people thought that he will lead Syria to a better future. Unfortunately, he didn't do any of those expectations. When usually we say that I was in prison, actually I was disappeared, like all the other tens of thousands of prisoners in Syria. Because when you say in prison, that means that you are known where you are, and people can reach you. There is a charge, there is a court, something like that.
A process.
But actually, what happened in Syria is just like they come to your house, or you go by your feet, and then you disappear. That's it. So when I went to the security forces branch in May 2003, I went there, and they immediately took me downstairs to the prison cells in the basement, underground. So the following day, my father came to that same building, and he asked for me, and they said that we never saw him.
Yeah.
And it was the same story until 10 months after that, when my parents knew that I was in Saydnaya Prison from abroad, from international organizations who has their own sources to know about something around political prisoners. So they knew that I was in Syrian prison, and they applied for a visit, and they managed to visit me after 10 months. The following visit was after 6 months from the first visit. And the visit is like sort of torture, because you just like have 30 minutes, and there are 2 metal barriers between us, and between me and my family was the soldiers standing there, preventing us from saying anything. I was in solitary cell at that time when they visited me. When the solitary cell was like, it was complete darkness when I first entered that cell.
Yes.
And very cold. You can't ask for anything. I found little pencil, which I have to hide whenever the soldiers came to the cell, because it's forbidden to have just this little pencil there. There is no time to mention the ways that they were dealing with us. But again, what happened to us before 2011 is nothing compared to what happened to prisoners in Syria after that. It's they went back to the same torture methods they were inflicting on prisoners in 1980s in Tadmor prisons and in the security forces prisons in the 80s.
Yeah.
When those prison cells were like slaughterhouse, and Saydnaya was literally after 2011 became back a slaughterhouse, and many human rights reports were issued about the detention in Syria and on Saydnaya
Haytham,
special.
Haytham,
Yeah.
can I ask you, did the guards, the people that were working in the prison, did they ever show any humanity towards the prisoners, towards you? Even though they were working under terrible conditions themselves, did they empathize with you and say, yes, we kind of understand this is wrong, but we have to keep doing this?
Yeah. Again, the situation was completely different from
Sure.
before 2011 and after that. Before that, yes, we have some sympathy from some prisoners. And when they knew that I was there just because I cleaned the streets or I did some campaigns against bribery. So, and I was like, let's say between brackets, brave enough to say to the judge that I will, if you release me, I will continue doing what I was doing because I did nothing wrong. So when they knew that, they sympathized with me, and some of them like tried to help me. Like one prisoner I remember smuggled little mushaf, little Quran.
Excuse me.
So, and he gave it to me to read, and then he took it back. So yeah, but after that, again, when the orders from the regime came to them to be brutal, they are soldiers. They act according to the orders. So they act brutally, and unfortunately, psychologically, when you start inflicting torture on others, after sometimes like sort of you enjoy that, and you invent in the ways you are
Yeah,
doing your talk.
you just do it. When you were released under the amnesty, I read the article, you were released under an amnesty, and as you were released, you then, obviously managed to escape. Tell us about your release. What happened and how was that?
The Syrian regime, they used to do nothing without any pressure from outside.
Ah, okay. So
If you leave them to their own will, they are happy to keep the whole Syrian people under their feet.
yeah.
What happened at that time in February 2005, Al-Hariri was the Prime Minister of Lebanon. Al-Hariri was assassinated, and the international community blamed the Syrian regime. So they put pressure on the Assad regime at that time to withdraw from Lebanon, and there was like people inside thought that the moment came for the Syrian people, because the Syrian regime was very weak at that time, and they were afraid that what happened in Iraq will happen again in Syria, and they will topple the regime from outside
Yeah.
because of what they did in Lebanon. So they tried to make some like actions to calm their own people, and one of those actions was to release 193 political prisoners, and I was lucky enough to be among those released prisoners. So it was like, again, by international pressure. We said
And
that.
and 193 is absolutely nothing compared to how many prisons
Of
or how
course,
many disappeared
we
there was.
left thousands behind us.
Did
When we
you
went out, I left my friends, and people there were crying, and although they were congratulating us that our names were among those names to be released, but they were crying because they are. I know some of them. They were released only after 2012, who were with me in 2003 and 4 and 5.
Did you feel guilty that you were released where so many others were still
That's
locked up? Did that? I mean, I hear that that's a common feeling amongst.
exactly. It's not easy to say goodbye to your
Yeah.
prison mate. It's not easy at all. I remember when I was like saying goodbye to one of my prison mates, I told him, hopefully next time it will be you. And he said, I used to hear that for 6 years now. So I couldn't say anything. I know that how difficult to see people, because when I was there, I experienced two amnesties, but most of them for very old prisoners, like
Yes.
those who came from Tadmur to Saydnaya and were imprisoned in 1980. One of them was, I met one prisoner was detained in 1977. We used to call him Nelson Mandela's Syria.
You know, when you were put into solitary confinement, how did you manage to? You come across as somebody who's very educated, sane. You know, you're a great interviewee in terms of being able to communicate. How did you manage solitary confinement?
To be honest, before I was imprisoned, I was let's say practicing a little bit, because I knew that this moment will come. Because any activity in Syria will face these difficulties, and the prison is one of them. So I was like, I was reading about many activists. I read many books. I read Gandhi's book,
Yes.
Nelson Mandela's book, Martin Luther King. All of these like activists who worked peacefully for justice and peace. The issue is you expect something, and when you are inside that experience, you have double feelings. One feeling which is like, of course, you are sad, you miss your family, your children, your freedom, relative freedom, of course. But at the same time, Allah gives you strength and patience, and I try to keep myself busy, memorizing Quran, praying, trying to do some exercise. And thankfully, although we are in solitary confinement, but I can, when the soldiers were nice, they allow us to talk through the walls.
Yeah.
So I can talk to my neighbors, let's say, through the walls. I can't see them, but at least we can have little discussion, which is give us some relaxation. And again, since I was expecting that, it was easier for me comparing to those who were not expecting to be jailed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that gives me some strength. And Alhamdulillah, I was in the solitary cell only for 7 months. Then they moved me to the public cells.
Yeah, but you say, I mean, with all due respect, you say 7 months. For me, how would anybody survive even a week? But you did 7 months, which is remarkable.
We Syrians always compare ourselves with the worst. so since
trauma.
I knew that there are many people who like spend years and years there. So I consider myself as a lucky man.
Have you seen or met any of the other prisoners that you were with at the time? Do you know if any survived?
during in the public cells or in the confinement cell?
No, in the confinement center. So those fellow prisoners.
Unfortunately, yeah, I only remember the names of two of them. I tried to find them on Facebook, social media, but I failed.
Yeah.
I know that one of them was moved to a civil prison after that, and he was sentenced for 10 years because I was sentenced in front of military court, but he was sentenced in front of a civil court. So he was sentenced for 10 years in Homs prison. I tried to find him, but I failed. And the other, unfortunately, one of my friends who was with me in the solitary cell, he was executed in 2013 in Syydnaya Prison. He was imprisoned after that, after the revolution, and he was executed in January 2013.
What are your feelings when you see the pictures of Saydnaya now?
I was watching the TV 5 days ago, or maybe 6 days ago, when they went into Saydnaya Prison, one of the wings that I was in the public cells, and so I knew those cells, and I remember how we were thinking at that time whether this moment will come or not. When we were there in 2005, let's say, we were thinking, like, are we going to see this moment where Saydnaya will be open for visitors to see what they did to people here? And yeah, that moment came, although after 2 decades and after a lot of suffering, after a very heavy price, but it came.
You know, it certainly did. You obviously fled Syria itself because it was obviously not safe for you. When you hear people in this country or those in other countries hold Assad up as some sort of resistor against Israeli oppression of the Palestinians, how does that make you feel? What's the reality? Educators.
The issue, like, I don't know if any revolution in this world was treated like the Syrian revolution. Many conspiracy theories,
Yeah.
many like a lot of misinformation, propaganda against the Syrian people. So one of them, of course, that the Assad regime was part of the resistance, let's say, axis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we met many people, Muslim people, people from the left wing, always like blaming us that we are on the side of America and Israel against Assad, who is resisting Israel.
Yeah.
And this is the maybe the I don't know how to describe this lie. Assad, father and son, they did the worst thing to Palestinian all over 40 or 50 years. We have a branch in Syria, prison, very bad prison in Syria called Palestine Branch, where they were imprisoning Palestinian groups, Palestinian people, and they used to tell them that we will let you see Palestine from here. They meant by torture. So they killed Palestinians in Lebanon. They killed Palestinians in Syria. They were against many Palestinians through resistance groups. And what they did to help the Palestinian resistance group was not because they wanted to be on that side, but because they have the side of Iran and Hezbollah to make an access for them for their own benefit. It's not for the benefit of Palestine or the Palestinian people. And one most important evidence of that is what Hezbollah himself they did. They sent their troops to kill the Syrian people during 10 years. They never sent half of those troops to the south of Lebanon or to Palestine. What they did in Syria is nothing. If you compare to what they did in Palestine to help Palestinians or to help liberating even South Lebanon, was nothing compared to what they did in Syria.
So, what's your message to those people who say, we're not sure, we're confused, perhaps this is a conspiracy by Israel, they're the only ones that benefit, maybe America's behind this? What's your message to people who harbour such views?
The enemy of your enemy is not your friend. This is, we should put in our mind. This is, we should not forget this. It's not always that the enemy of your enemy is your friend. Sometimes they are more enemy than your enemy themselves. So just watch the mass graves now. Watch the destruction inflicted on Syria by Assad army. Just go to Daraya, my hometown, go to Douma, go to Ma'arat al-Nu'man and see the destruction there. This destruction occurred by the Syrian army, by Hezbollah, by the Russian jet fighters. So just watch this and you know why we had to stand against Assad. To the opposite, Syrian people paid a lot to help Palestinians. Not now, not 20 years ago. From 1936, when Izz-ad-Din Qassam went there to help Palestinians. So Syrian people will be always on the side of Palestinian people, on the side of their rights. And we will never let them down. But that does not mean that to believe the lies of Assad or their allies that they were against Israel. They never did anything to liberate Golan Heights, let alone Palestine. Just one final point. When I was in prison, I met many people there, their own crime, that they tried to do something against Israel. And they were imprisoned by military court for more than 4 and 5 years.
Haytham, that was very powerful. Thank you for sharing your views on that. What comes next for Syria?
We hope that the next will be better. For 14 years, we stand for a democratic Syria for everyone. And we hope that that the future is better than what we experienced, not only during the last 14 years, but also better than what we experienced since the Ba'ath Party came to power in 1963. Whatever happened, it will be the first step for a better future, inshallah.
And very finally, will you be returning to Syria?
Inshallah, at least soon for a visit, but I will see where I can benefit Syria better, and I will stick to that, inshallah.
No, it's been very moving for me to have this conversation with you, because we all think we're experts. We all think we understand what took place. We understand another people, but hearing it from somebody who has been through such an enormous experience, incredible experience, is a real honor and a privilege. And it's great to see you speaking about it so freely and obviously sharing your experience. I hope in whatever you do, your world is better, and things happen for the best, I suppose, and Syria becomes a better place for all Syrians. I went to the refugee camps in Lebanon and in Jordan as part of some charity work that I do, and I saw the awful conditions of people who had everything taken away from them, literally everything, and all they had was these very flimsy tents, a cooker which was just spreading pollutants in their tent, living through awful conditions. And I think, finally, at some point when it's safe, they can return back to those homes, because that's where they wanted to be. And those orphans who had lost everything and everybody in their family, and there was nobody there, can finally actually at least have their country back. So Haytham, listen, thank you so much for being here. Any final words you want to share before we let you go?
Thank you for having me, and especially, as I said, because there was a lot of misinformation about the Syrian revolution from 2011, and I hope that what the world saw last, let's say, 10 days from the atrocities of Assad regime will open their eyes about why we stood against Assad, and I hope that they will be with us during building or rebuilding Syria again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a real privilege. Thank you so much, Haytham, for being with us. That was Haytham Alhamwi, a former Assad prisoner. Be back after this.